monthly reports. And the first is the Waihoro Spreydon-Cashmere Community Board report to Council. Carolyn Potter. Thank you.
We're going to take, with your permission, we're going to take the Spreydon-Cashmere Community Board's report as read, largely, but we'll do a quick flick through the photos, but because I want to talk about the issue that's on the Part A matter that's on your agenda today, which is the bus lanes through Addington Village. And just while the pictures are coming up, I'd just like to thank Rebecca and Sandy and possibly the elephant and the others for coming from Rebellion Extinction, some of whom I'm proud to say live in Addington. Thank you.
Old Stone House.
The Old Stone House in Craycroft. Actually, in my role as a JP, I had a Tongan come to for JP signatures the other day, and he was a stonemason who worked on the Old Stone House and was very proud to do so. Spreydon-Cashmere Community Service Awards. I just want to mention that on our board, we rotate prize giving right through our board members. So you'll see all our board members shaking their hands, putting the things. And so I might start it and do a little spiel and all that, and then someone else will come up to the rostrum and stand and shake the hands and all that. So all the board members are active in meeting the community and presenting the awards. We share all those kinds of duties around the place. That's it. Lincoln Road. Before I start on my written thing, which I might find difficult to read because my eyes are shot and you want to see my driving if you think my reading's bad. No, you don't actually, it's serious. Somebody should put me off the road. I just want to mention that Addington Village is a small old village, and I'll be talking about that a little bit, with a number of service agencies there, ranging from, for instance, the Salvation Army supporting people with alcoholism, and the refugee resettlement services for refugees and migrants, and a number of agencies are in Addington, and the people who are working shoulder to shoulder with other people in the community who need some support in parts of their lives are part of our community. We support one another, and there's a great deal of respect for one another. And Addington possibly has the largest number of support agencies per head of population of any of the suburbs of Christchurch. Kia ora. The stretch of road through Addington, the centre of the issue before you, is 900 metres long. It starts at the intersection of Whiteley, Barrington and Lincoln Road. At this intersection, one lane goes to Riccarton, 2 lanes go to Addington, merging into 1 lane, and the right lane goes to Barrington. Addington is one of the founding villages of Christchurch, and arguably, with its narrow lanes and old houses, many of them on the footpath, retains a sense of the late 19th century, early 20th. The board and its predecessors has known of these traffic proposals for around 25 years. I somehow cannot help but think that since the introduction of limes, to be enacting 25-year-old proposals without any change really is not thinking of what the future may spring upon us in terms of transport. 3 years ago, we were gratefully relieved when staff came to see us with a proposal for Addington that was boulevarded, pedestrian, lots of trees, wide footpaths, and we were told, and I quote, at that time, we will not be 4-laning Addington. We went and told residents. The proposal somehow died and we never saw it again. Next, we had a proposal in the LTP for Lincoln Road, Curlitz to Wrights Road, with a bus lane one way into town. It cost $11 million, and we thought the money could have been spent better elsewhere, and said so. Suddenly, without notice, we found that proposal moved to 23-24, and we were told second-hand that the proposal for this financial year, was for bus laning both ways right through Addington Village. The process has been fraught. The consultations did not consider our residents in Addington, nor the advice given to them on where and how to hold them. The consultations, I mean. The presentation to the board, the last presentation to the board, was completely different to the presentation to the first consultation, which occurred the very next day. And finally, there was an attempt to remove the board from the process and getting the proposal to council urgently before last Christmas. The proposal eventually came to our board last month. Neither Councillor Scandrett or Clearwater was present. 2 board members from Cashmere raised issues around the cast NZTA modelling in the budget. One of our board members is a project manager working for Christchurch City Council. Safety for cyclists, the car sale yards and their viability, and the cost blowout if option 2 was accepted, because if that option 2 was accepted but a later bus lane had to be introduced, the cost would rise. The Deputy Chair and I, members for Spreydon, supported 2 different options, both with the same aim. I should mention at this point that the board has always supported public transport and always supported cycle lanes without almost any criticism of either, and here we go on the differences. That would allow Addington Village and shops to survive, retaining the village atmosphere. Mel proposed option 2, which you have before you, which would allow people on the way home, because there would be no bus lane on the way home, to stop, park and shop, and thus allow the Addington shops, many of which are fast food or dairies or other quick stop shops, to survive. I proposed an option that was a formal option in the initial proposal when it was first mooted to us last year, but for some reason wasn't in the official final proposal that came to the board, and that was for one of the 2 lanes that proceed into Addington being a bus lane with its own green light, which would start the buses and cyclists into Addington before the cars in the other lane. And for the 900 metres of Addington, the buses and cyclists would, in a parade, go safely first and the cars would be behind it. This would mean that no bus lanes would have to be created, and the city would be providing a visual example of the city's true transport priorities: people first, public transport and cyclists second, and cars at the rear. Finally, the proposals are so finely drawn that the footpaths are very pushed for space, and the trumpeter sculpture, which was installed when the Jackson's Creek or ditch was uncovered and became the Jackson's Creek, and a heritage lane was introduced through Haddington, the trumpeter sculpture cannot stay where it is on the footpath and has to go to the Hazeldean Office Park right at the end of Addington and will never be seen again. Other objects that Addington put in place, such as welcome to Addington signs and seats, went to the Hazeldean Office Park and haven't been seen again. We cannot imagine that there is room for the suggested plantings, never mind safe space for people with disability and cyclists. I am sorry the proposal has ended up with you. It's not a good look for our community board. We should have done better, and I wish we had.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yanni?
Thank you for the deputation and the lot of thought you've put into it. Are you basically saying you don't support it and you'd like us to spend more time engaging and coming up with a better plan?
I did realise that when I woke up this morning I hadn't put the vote in. The vote was an impasse, with two community board members voting against and voting for and 2 community board members voting against, of which I was of the latter group.
If we wish to respond to what you've just said, more time, more engagement and a different plan is basically what I've heard.
This whole issue just wouldn't have ended up here because I don't believe in confrontation with staff, ever.
Okay.
This issue would not have ended up here if we'd had conversation
Thank you.
with the community and with each other.
Yeah. Thanks.
there were 2 community boards that presented on this,
Um,
and they
there-
both reached an impasse. Is that right?
No, there are
No.
three community boards involved. Linwood Central, absolutely marginally. A tiny bit of the back of Addington is in Linwood Central. Horswell, of course, Horswell, Riccarton, Hornby, of course, has a large group of people who need to get to town.
Yeah.
And without access to Brom, that large group of people have to come through Addington. We acknowledge that. It's just how we make the bus lane work.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much for your submission. I mean, well, for your presentation on your community board report, which you've turned into a submission on your part A. But that's entirely appropriate, and thanks for highlighting the difficulty that you faced with having a split vote.
Yeah.
So there isn't a recommendation coming from the community board.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got Waitai Coastal Burwood Community. Oh, sorry, we need to receive the report. So Tim, seconded by Phil. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.